Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm David, and today we're going to talk about something that affects every one of us, even if we don't always realize it: unspoken social rules. These are the rules that guide our behavior in social situations. They aren't written down anywhere, but we still follow them. We follow these rules because they help us get along with others. They also help us fit in with the people around us. However, because these rules are unspoken, we often follow them without thinking. We all want to get along with others and be seen as friendly and polite. That's why we follow these social rules, often without even realizing it. For example, there's a common rule about personal space. Most of us automatically stand a certain distance away from someone when we're talking to them. If we stand too close, the other person might feel uncomfortable. If we stand too far away, it might seem like we're not interested in what they're saying. This rule about personal space is one of the many unspoken guidelines that help keep our social interactions smooth and comfortable. Another unspoken rule is about making eye contact. In many cultures, making eye contact shows that you're paying attention and are interested in what the other person is saying. But too much eye contact can feel intense or uncomfortable, so we learn to balance it. We look at the person we're talking to, but we also look away sometimes to give them space. This balance helps make conversations feel natural and comfortable.
Social rules are like invisible guidelines that tell us what's appropriate in different situations. They help us understand how to behave in a way that's considered polite and respectful. But because these rules are not written down or taught directly, we often learn them by watching others. We also learn them through our own experiences. Some of these rules might seem obvious once we think about them, but others can be surprising. For example, taking turns in conversation is another unspoken rule. We all know that it's polite to wait for someone to finish speaking before we start talking. Interrupting someone or talking over them is often seen as rude. But why is that? It's because taking turns allows everyone to have a chance to speak. It also allows everyone to be heard. This makes the conversation more balanced and enjoyable for everyone involved. Let's take another look at body language. Body language is a powerful form of communication. We often use it without even realizing it. For instance, nodding your head while someone is speaking shows that you're listening and agreeing with what they're saying. On the other hand, crossing your arms might send a signal that you're feeling defensive or closed off. These small cues can greatly affect how others see us. They also affect how they respond to us. Being aware of our own body language and the body language of others can help us communicate better. Another unspoken rule is about politeness in everyday interactions. We all know that saying please and thank you is polite, but there are many other small behaviors that show politeness as well. For example, holding the door open for someone is polite. Letting others go first or offering to help someone who seems to need it are also polite actions. These actions might seem small, but they make a big difference in how others see us. They also affect how others feel around us.
And speaking of politeness, there's also an unspoken rule about not talking about certain topics in public. This is especially true with people you don't know well. Topics like religion, politics, or money can be sensitive. They might lead to disagreements. That's why many people avoid these subjects unless they're with close friends or family. In these settings, people know their views will be understood. This rule helps prevent uncomfortable situations. It also keeps conversations pleasant and friendly. It's interesting to think about how these topics can be okay in some settings, but are considered off-limits in others. The key here is context. It's important to understand where and with whom certain conversations are appropriate. This is part of following unspoken social rules. Let's also talk about greetings and goodbyes. In different cultures, there are specific ways of greeting and saying goodbye to people. These ways are considered polite. For example, in some cultures, a handshake is the standard greeting. In others, people might bow or kiss on the cheek. These greetings are a way of showing respect. They also acknowledge the other person. Similarly, there are rules about how we say goodbye. In some cultures, it's important to say goodbye to each person individually. In others, a general wave or nod is enough. These small actions might seem unimportant, but they help us navigate social situations smoothly. They also show respect for others. Even the way we use our phones in social settings is guided by unspoken rules. For example, it's generally considered rude to check your phone during a conversation. This is true unless it's urgent. These rules help us stay focused on the people we're with. They also show that we value their presence.
That's a very important point, David. Knowing which topics to avoid and when to bring them up is something we learn over time. It's part of being aware of others' feelings and respecting their boundaries. Another unspoken rule is about how we greet people. In some cultures, a handshake is the standard greeting. In others, people might bow or kiss on the cheek. These greetings are a way of showing respect and acknowledging the other person. We learn these rules by observing others and following what's considered normal in our culture. Another important unspoken rule is the rule of sharing. When you're in a group, there's often an expectation that you'll share what you have. This could be food, ideas, or help. For example, if you bring snacks to a gathering, it's polite to offer them to everyone. If you have information that could help someone, it's kind to share it. This rule is all about creating a sense of community and cooperation. Another thing to consider is the unspoken rule about how we express thanks. It's not just about saying thank you. It's also about showing appreciation through your actions. For example, if someone helps you with a project, it's polite to acknowledge their effort. You could do something nice for them in return, or you could simply let them know how much their help meant to you. This kind of behavior strengthens relationships. It also encourages a positive environment. And let's not forget about the unspoken rule of understanding others' feelings. This is often called empathy. When someone is going through a tough time, we don't always need to offer advice. Sometimes just listening and being there for them is the best way to show you care. Empathy is a powerful social tool. It helps us connect with others on a deeper level. These unspoken rules of sharing, showing appreciation, and empathy help us build stronger, more meaningful relationships with the people around us. Sharing is a way of showing that you care about others. It also shows that you are willing to help the group. Sharing helps build trust and strengthens relationships. And while these rules might seem small or obvious, they play a big role in how we interact with others every day. Following these unspoken rules helps us fit in. It also helps us make friends and create a positive environment around us. Another interesting unspoken rule is about how we handle disagreements. In many social situations, it's considered polite to avoid direct arguments. Instead, people might use softer language. They might use indirect ways of expressing disagreement. This helps keep the conversation civil. It also prevents hurt feelings. For example, instead of saying, "I completely disagree with you," someone might say, "I see your point, but have you thought about this?" This kind of language helps to keep discussions respectful and productive.
Let's also talk about the unspoken rule of giving others space when they're upset. Sometimes people need time alone. We often notice when someone is feeling down or needs some time to themselves. Instead of pushing them to talk, we give them the space they need. This shows respect for their feelings. It also shows respect for how they handle emotions. It's an unspoken way of saying, "I'm here for you, but I respect your need for time and space." Another part of this is the unspoken rule of offering help without being asked. For instance, if you see a coworker struggling with a heavy load of work, it's polite to offer your help. This is true even if they haven't asked for it. This kind of proactive kindness can make a big difference in someone's day. It can also strengthen the bond between you. Understanding and following these unspoken social rules allows us to navigate the complexities of human interaction with grace and empathy.
Absolutely, David. These unspoken social rules are like the glue that holds our interactions together. They might not be written down, but they're an essential part of how we communicate and connect with others. By understanding and following these rules, we can navigate social situations more easily. We can also make sure that we're being respectful and considerate of others. One of the most fascinating things about unspoken rules is how they can vary from culture to culture. What might be considered polite in one culture could be seen as rude in another. For example, in some cultures, it's common to arrive early or on time for an event. In others, arriving a little late is perfectly fine and even expected. This cultural difference shows how flexible and adaptable social rules can be. It's important to be aware of these differences, especially when interacting with people from different backgrounds. Being mindful of cultural differences and unspoken rules helps us avoid misunderstandings. It also helps us build better relationships with people from all walks of life. Another example of a cultural difference in social rules is how people express disagreement. In some cultures, it's common to be very direct and straightforward. In others, people might use more indirect language to avoid hurting someone's feelings. Understanding these differences can help us communicate better with people from different cultures. It can also help create a more inclusive and respectful environment. These unspoken rules are like a social code that we all follow, whether we realize it or not. They guide our interactions. They help us fit in. They also make sure we're treating others with kindness and respect. By becoming more aware of these rules, we can improve our social skills. We can also make our interactions more positive and meaningful.
As we've seen today, these rules are everywhere, and we follow them without even thinking about it. But once we become aware of them, we can use them to our advantage. We can improve our communication skills and build better relationships. We can also make sure we're treating others with kindness and respect. It's all about being mindful of how our actions affect others. It's also about making choices that create positive interactions. These unspoken rules aren't just about avoiding conflict or fitting in. They're about creating a sense of community and connection with the people around us. They help us understand each other better. They also help us navigate the complexities of social life with grace and ease. Another thing to consider is how these unspoken rules change over time. What was considered polite or acceptable a few decades ago might not be the same today. As society changes, so do the rules that guide our social interactions. For example, with the rise of social media and digital communication, new unspoken rules have emerged. These rules tell us how to interact online. For example, things like not oversharing, respecting others' privacy, and being careful with your tone in written communication are all part of today's social code. Being aware of these new rules helps us stay connected and relevant in a rapidly changing world. Understanding these unspoken social rules can also help us become more empathetic and caring toward others. By recognizing that everyone is following these invisible guidelines, we can better appreciate the efforts people make to be polite, respectful, and considerate in their interactions. This understanding fosters a greater sense of community. It also encourages us to be more mindful of our own behavior. So, as we go about our daily lives, let's take a moment to consider the unspoken rules we're following. Let's also think about how they shape our interactions with others. By being more aware of these rules, we can enhance our social skills, build stronger relationships, and create a more positive environment for everyone.
And for our listeners, we encourage you to start paying attention to these unspoken social rules in your own life. Notice how people interact with each other and how you respond in different situations. By becoming more aware of these rules, you can start to see the patterns in your own behavior and in the behavior of others. This awareness can help you become more confident in social situations. It can also improve your relationships with those around you. Whether you're at work, with friends, or in public, understanding these rules can make a big difference in how you connect with others. So, next time you're in a social situation, take a moment to think about the unspoken rules you're following. How do they help the interaction? How do they make you feel? And how can you use them to make your interactions even better? These small details can have a big impact on your social life and your overall happiness.
And as we wrap up today's episode, we hope you found this discussion on unspoken social rules helpful and insightful. Remember, these rules are here to guide us, but it's up to us to follow them in a way that feels right for us. By being aware of these rules, we can make our social interactions more positive and enjoyable. These small, often unnoticed behaviors play a significant role in shaping our relationships and our daily lives. Whether it's through being mindful of personal space, understanding the power of body language, or knowing when to offer help, these unspoken rules help us navigate the world with kindness and respect. So, Let's all strive to be more aware of these rules and how they influence our interactions. By doing so, we can create a more positive and harmonious environment for ourselves and those around us.
If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast. We have many more episodes on a variety of topics that we think you'll enjoy. Take care, everyone, and don't forget to pay attention to the little things that make our social world go round.